as well to see who they're actually working with right now before pressing forward with anything like that.
Okay, we're now on air, buddy.
Okay, I'll hit the record button. Okay, record on this computer. Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome to Tuesday, the 14th of July's edition of Track Talk Tuesday, Pinoyathletics Track Talk Tuesday, with the hosts, myself, Coach Andrew, and also Coach Ernell Ibarra, the professor. I'll just address some things. I have a few requests asking about links and that sort of thing. So I'll just quickly let, I'll quickly just share the link to the track talk, as I have some people who are quite interested in joining. So I've just entered the link. All right. So without further ado, we'll get straight into it. It's been a rather busy time for myself, as I've spent a lot of time working on a very challenging level 3 Athletics Australia sprints and hurdle coaching course, which I will talk about later, which has been taking up a lot of my time doing. I'm feeling with this level 3 sprints and hurdles course, I'm feeling like if this was a high jump competition, I would just be making it over the bar. I feel that the course is at my level, and I don't feel that I could take on level 4 for quite some time without a bit more coaching experience under my belt. I think I would need to be coaching, probably wait at least another 2-3 more years before I can attempt level 4 Athletics Australia sprints and hurdling coaching accreditation, because honestly I would drown at this point if I attempted level 3 and level 4 at this point. It would just be much too challenging. So now, without further ado, if you could share those slides.
Yes, buddy.
The outline.
Moment. So the first one is the talent identification for speed and power athletes.
The other one.
The blue one.
Outline.
Or the outline is
no, not yeah, the outline, not the talent identification one.
Okay. One moment. Okay, so
awesome. Thanks.
Okay, so we're now.
Okay, so I'm now discussing what we'll be covering today. So our main topic will be talent identification for speed and power athletes, primarily for sprinters, how to find and identify talented sprinters amongst the general population, things to consider, things to know in regards to handling and that sort of stuff. Just a 10-page PowerPoint set of slides, pretty easy to understand, pretty concise. For further information, you can find a full article on Pinoyathletics regarding talent identification for speed and power athletes if you feel like a bit more of a thorough read. I believe it is about a 3,000, 4,000 word article, possibly more, as we do like to write in depth. Resources which can be referred to at a later date with evergreen content. Moving on to the next slide.
One moment. Okay. Where's that?
Yep.
One moment, buddy. I'm looking. Okay, next. Okay, yes. Continue.
Moving on to the next slide. It's just
that you, buddy?
Yep.
You, I think so. The buff.
This is like
the buff beard dog, man. The buff beard dog.
Yeah, and obviously I should have pulled my pants up a little bit more in that photo. But anyhow, yeah, this is from a few years ago. I'm just reporting that I'm now not only am I coaching online, but I also have to keep my own physical fitness up. So, like, I believe that any good coach should lead by example, and I've now started working out in the gym, mainly just to encourage my group of athletes to start, to not skip workouts, to stay fit. I mean, at 36 years of age, I'm just heading back into the gym. I'm lifting, I'm on the treadmill, and I'm gradually building back my fitness levels. And also, I just like to stay healthy because, with COVID and all, I'm just trying to keep my health in check. I just run through what I did in the gym today. I did some clean and jerks, 5 sets of 5, did some power cleans, went to 65. Deadlifts, I went to about 120, like did 5 reps. Incline dumbbell bench press, step ups, 3 sets of 12 with 10 kilos of a quick rate on a plate. Wrist exercises, very crucial for developing grip, like a number of wrist exercises, followed by 3 sets of 6 pull-ups. Back in the day, I used to be able to do a continuous set of 35 pull-ups, but that was honestly like nearly 20 years ago. It was much lighter then when I was able to do it. Also, for my warm-up, I ended up doing like 2.2K in 8 minutes on the treadmill. So that's just an update of how weights and stuff are going on a personal note. But anyway, I don't want to bore the public with the details of my workouts. So if we could move on to the next slide. Okay, so as I was mentioning before, I've been primarily busy on a personal note with Level 3 Athletics Australia Sprints and Hurdle Coaching Accreditation. I'm nearly done with the course. I'm doing the assessment at the moment. I've nearly finished it. I've written it out. I had to write a 13-week program. I chose to do a 13-week program for a high school 200 and 400 meter runner. I've nearly, completed it with the templates. Actually, it was supposed to be the most difficult part of the assessment, but for me, it was the easiest because I already had templates. I already had athletes who I've coached in similar situations. So it was just really picking and choosing and making slight adaptations. And, I wrote it out, but now I've got to type it out. So that's taking a bit of time to encode because I just printed it out, wrote it out. Now I've got to type it out. It was interesting because as well as that, on the Level 3 Athletics Australia course, they were very good questions at the start. There was a question, like I had to design a pull workout. I had to design a training program. If an athlete, gets sick, if an athlete will get sick, you have to take a lot of things into consideration when they're moving back to ensure that they don't get injured because their body's weakened. So you've got to sort of gradually build them back into training. I mean, if an athlete's been sick for a couple of weeks, and you need a couple of weeks to gradually build them back into training, not rushing them straight back into intense training after coming off being sick or something like that. It was interesting. There was some more really good thought-provoking questions in there in that course. Just a moment. So it was really enlightening. I mean, I found it really helped me structure things. So I've just got the folder out. Explain the primary benefit for sprinters in performing plyometric exercises. So I just really felt that it's the main point about plyometric exercises, as well as developing strength and power. It's like the bridge between the strength developed in the gym and the speed on the track. So it's basically converting all that gym strength into explosive speed on the track. That's how I likened plyometrics. Then there was a primary benefit for sprint hurdlers in performing strength and conditioning sessions, pull sessions for conditioning. There was the question about the returning to the track from illness to avoid injury, not rushing back in too quickly. and developing in the preparing an experienced team of 16-year-old girls to run a 4x1 with efficient changes. So like, of course, push pass, and then just going through the handoff drills and that sort of thing. Obviously, with starting with just practicing handoffs, practicing calls, then moving to jogging and passing the baton, and then moving to short approaches, and then fourth, just familiarizing the baton changes, and getting the athletes to sort of familiarize themselves with the other runner, how long they need to run in, where they need to put their check marks, that sort of thing. So yeah, it was really enlightening. It wasn't a cheap course to do, so that's another reason why I probably will be waiting a couple of years to move on to the next level, and also the life experiences needed to get to that next level. Anyway, moving on to the next slide. Okay, so the next thing is regarding the situation of the COVID, the IATF, and competitions. As of now, relating to the Philippines, it seems that COVID cases are obviously rising rapidly. What I noted was quite high death numbers reported: 165 2 days ago, 65 today. Even though these figures are probably not reflective of number of deaths in the actual day, these are basically backlogged cases that have been reported from other days. So it just seems that the COVID situation is on the rise, which presents a whole set of challenges in regards to training, having a lot of online athletes who I'm training, having to make adjustments to the programs. Like, obviously they can't use track ovals, so they're having to use stationary bikes and training inside, and I have to make adapted training programs for certain athletes, which is a challenge within itself, to modify my workout so the athletes do not lose too much fitness, but at the same time do not put themselves at risk of contracting the COVID. So as far as I could with the IATF, they have already approved basketball and football to return to training. We're not sure in regards to athletics and track and field, even though running and recreational activities were approved with some limitations. We're not exactly sure what, with Philippine athletics, what the situation is with the IATF. Hopefully we will get updates soon on that. The last thing we heard was from one of the webinars of baffles was that they were planning to push through with weekly relays in September. I'm not entirely sure if that will be possible at this point, because, like, for example, in Europe, there's a lot of restrictions in place, like with the Golden League, Diamond League, and other competitions. They have competitions, yeah, but they're not the same as they were before the COVID. There are restrictions. Like, for example, there's athletes running in different stadiums that are sort of telecast to tele-linked. For example, when those three guys ran the 200, Noah Lyles, the white French sprinter, I can't remember the guy's name, and the other American guy, when they were running in different stadiums, solo for the 200 meters. Then, for example, in some of the other races, like the women's 100 meters in Jamaica, there was only 4 runners and they were running one lane apart. So these sort of modifications will have to be considered by the Philippine Track and Field Association when they make their proposals to the IATF, because there are limitations to what can be done to ensure that the protocols put in place are in line with the rest of the world regarding safety, first in regards to COVID control and that sort of thing. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, so yeah, so next month the Vietnamese, they've already had their Speedy Cup in June. They've had their national marathon in July. So in August they're moving to their closed national championship in August. This will be for both identifying new talent and youth, and also for the seasoned SEA Games caliber athletes to like show their performance at this point. We will be reporting on the results of this competition. I believe it is in the first or second week of August. So it'll be both for under 18 and senior athletes from Vietnam. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, so there was a little bit of controversy the other day because they had a three-man race at the Impossible Games with Noah Lyles like stopping the clock at 18.90, which would have shattered nearly 0.3 seconds off Usain Bolt's world record. I believe that was set in, if I'm not mistaken, 2009 at the World Championships in Berlin, which was 11 years ago now. It doesn't seem like, you know, in 2009, when Bolt ran that, it doesn't seem like very long ago, but that's already more than 10 years ago now. It's 11 years ago when Bolt ran that phenomenal, you know, set of times at the 2008 Olympics, and then in 2009, he backed up with, you know, even more impressive times. You know, Noah Lyles ran, you know, he stopped the clock. It was stopped at 18.92, and then it was rounded down to 18.90. You know, Steve Cram, the commentator, he couldn't believe it. He was like, that can't be right. That can't be right. That can't be right. He hasn't, that time doesn't look right. Later after the race, they discovered that Lyles had actually ran 185 meters, you know, meaning that, you know, he was 4 lanes out from lane 1. I think he was in lane 4, so he was like 4 or 5 lanes out from 4 lanes out from lane 1. He's in 5 or 4. So he started at where he started at was around where the 200 meter starters in lane 1, but he was in lane 4 or lane 5. So he ended up running 185 meters for 1890, which is still good. It's still like a 20-second 200 meter run. Okay, so next slide. Also, the very impressive run in Jamaica. They had a competition there, which was, as I said, 1 lane apart. Each athlete was separated by 1 vacant lane. Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, you know, like made a world lead of 11 flat into a strong minus 2.2 headwind. Her, you know, opening, you know, with 11 flat, with considering that she looks like she's carrying a bit of weight, and obviously with COVID and that sort of thing, it must have been a bit difficult to train. Still comes out and, you know, blasts 11 flat just off the bat. It's just you know, and I thought it was a very impressive performance. She was pretty much out the front by herself. I think second was 11.4, 11.5, and then there was 11.8 or 11.7 in that race. So it's almost like a training run. But, like, you know, there's going to be with Fraser-Pryce, the interesting thing as well is the height. I mean, Ernell wrote a very interesting article. I believe she's only 5 foot, or maybe even, you know, like around 5 flat in height. And Ernell wrote a very good article on, you know, how height in female sprinters is not really too much of a factor compared to, say, genetics. And
because
yes, Ernell?
yes, as I mentioned, it's really the dynamics and the mechanics of the running. Because, example, if
Yep.
always the height would be a matter of thing, for example, our dear friend Alexandra Burghardt stands at 5'11",
Yep.
and yet she's her 11.32, and then
Yep.
she was only to qualify for the Olympics, not on individual events but on the relay. She's like always on the top 3 or top 4 or top 5 runner sprinters in Germany that time, and she said that she had all this is non-verbatim, but sometimes she's saying
Yep.
that I think her height sometimes is
A
um,
hindrance.
it's challenge is because of her size, but then at the same time that's why she's managing always to do the first runner and the second runner because of the head start. So that is the reason.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing you need to consider, and this is going back to what I covered in the Athletics Australia course with relays and passing, is the other thing you need to really consider is the height of the runners with the passing of the baton, because like if you have a taller runner passing to a smaller runner or a smaller runner passing to a taller runner, it's like, you know, you have to make some adjustments there, because if a smaller runner is passing to a taller runner, the smaller runner really needs to reach up to pass the baton into the hand of the taller runner. So
Yes.
these sort of factors need to be brought into play when you choose your order of your relays based on height. That needs to be also considered, as well as the athlete's strengths and weaknesses with starts and running around curbs and
Yes.
passing. That all needs to be considered
Yes,
as
buddy.
well.
I think it would be good that if you watch the 27 World Athletics 4x100 meter relay finals women, Alexandra Lander, and she's on the first run, so that you can clearly
What
observe
year is it? Sorry, 2017 or
2017
2000?
Bahamas. 2017 Bahamas.
Yep.
World Relays 4x100 women. There where they beat United States and Jamaica, because
Yep.
US slipped. I think it's
Yep.
on the first run. It slipped on the track, and then Jamaica.
Yeah. What would be very interesting with Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price is looking, how long is her stride? Does she have the stride of a taller runner because she creates so much force when she hits the ground? Or does she have the stride, like, does she just have a shorter stride than a taller runner, but just more stride frequency, meaning that her legs just turn over faster? That would be an interesting thing.
I think it's the frequency on how fast she stride, but at the same time how fast she gets
Yep.
out of the surface. I think that's another question, because
Yeah, well, with sprints, it's about like how much force you can apply in a short amount of time. It's not just about applying a lot of force. It's basically applying that force and basically recovering for the next stride. It's not just about applying a lot of force. It's about applying a lot of force in short amounts of time and trying not to spend too much time on the ground. With another good example is Usain Bolt and Tyson Gay. Obviously, Usain Bolt is 6'5". Tyson Gay is, I believe, about 5'11". I'm not sure if he's 6. He's about 5'10", 5'11". And Tyson Gay's strides are nowhere near as as long as Bolt's, but he has higher stride frequency. But obviously, in the case of someone like Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, she's probably got incredible stride frequency, even if her strides aren't, really super long. She's probably got incredible stride frequency to compensate for not having the height. In which case, incredible stride frequency, yeah, you can coach that. You can develop that through drills, and you can make an athlete, very efficient in stride frequency. But at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to genetics. That's what I find, that the genetics would play a huge part in someone like Fraser-Price. Even though, she isn't particularly tall, she's probably got a lot of fast, like the type 2 fast twitch muscles in her legs compared to the rest of the population. Hence, she's more naturally just explosive. And that's obviously just been fine-tuned by having a coach who's basically ticking all the boxes when it comes to things that need to be done in training. Anyway,
Yeah.
moving on to the next slide. This
Okay.
is really a topic in itself.
I,
Yep, next one. Okay, so the last thing I want to mention before I head into our main topic is, yeah, we've had a lot of interest from athletes who want to have coaching and that sort of thing. So we've created another group. We're screening applicants and that sort of thing, mainly just to share knowledge and provide some structure to programs and that sort of stuff. Actually, as a matter of interest, with the 6 guys I'm helping at the moment, who I'm coaching, all of them online, 2 of them in the States, 4 of them in the Philippines, 5 sprinters and a middle distance runner. The first thing I've already started giving them programs, but and they've all been pretty good. I mean, they've been reporting in, they've been sending videos, they've been sending photos, they've been asking a lot of questions, which is always good when athletes, want to know why they're doing things, and, and they can accept constructive explanations. Obviously, we'll take on more, but obviously, in the past, how I work is I give a 1-week program, and if the athlete just doesn't do it, then then it's better that they look for greener pastures in that case, because I mean, here I get paid quite a bit to be a coach, and this is basically voluntary. And if an athlete just doesn't do the programs after the first week, then basically they're on their own after that, because why make the effort? But what I'm saying is that one of the first things that we're going to do, and this is what I did with my athletes before at the sports academy, is I asked them to write down their goals. Not just write down goals, and they should be specific, measurable, and realistic, and
timely.
And specified by time. So I want to achieve this goal. I want to run this time by this date. I want to, and even if I want to, for example, I want to make the Palarong Pambansa final. I want to qualify to go to college in Manila. I want to qualify for the SEA Games. Those are good goals. But if you're going to say you're going to qualify for the SEA Games or qualify for the Palaro final or whatever, you should have a fair idea of what exact time or what exact performance is required to do that. That's how specific goals need to be set, because basically if you've got a target time or a target jump or a target whatever you want to do, usually the best way to do it is basically think about when you want to achieve it by, and work backwards from that date, and work backwards from that date and where you need to be at each certain point in terms of a check mark. You need to be, say for example, I mean, if you want to run, 11 flat, and you're running 11.5 at the beginning of the season, then obviously, by a certain point you should be running about 11.2, on the way to running that 11 flat, or 11.3 or 11.4 prior to that. So, there are check marks, to know that you're progressing to where you want to progress to. And if obviously if you're not progressing to where you need to progress to, then in that season, obviously adjustments need to be made to the program to, at times, if something's not working, then adjustments need to be made to the program, which is where feedback comes in. Obviously, in my view, if an athlete has years where they're not improving under the same coach, then it may probably not work. But if, say for example, if it's still the first season with the coach, then and something's not working, then obviously as a coach you need to talk to the athlete, get the feedback, come up with something, and then make adjustments where necessary to get the athlete back on track to where the objective is heading. But the other thing is that as a coach, you should always be positive. You should always be positive. You should be realistic, but you should be positive towards the athlete in terms of constructive feedback, positive feedback, try and praise what they're doing right, and rather be too negative about what they're not doing well. If they're not doing something well, you can always say, I think you need to work on this, because it'll help you a lot, sort of thing. Just make it sound like what you're trying to help. As a coach, you're trying to help. You're not trying to demoralize. You're not trying to put an athlete down. You're not trying to you're not trying to belittle or embarrass or humiliate the athlete. You're just you're there to help. At the end of the day, that's your role as a coach. You're helping the athlete on their journey to where they want to be. That's why it's very important to establish a goal, so the athlete writes it down and they know where they want to be. So the athlete will, be able to refer back to it. So, and then you can evaluate whether or not you're on the way to that goal or things need to be done differently. All right. So next, we'll just move into the main part of today's presentation, which is talent identification.
Yes, one moment. Yeah. So, okay. So one moment. Yeah. And then, so we move now to the first presentation, to the main presentation. Meanwhile, we would like to also acknowledge our people who are on our Facebook. Patrick Manalang of San Pablo City, Laguna. Veranis, the season coach of University of San Carlos and Cebu. Regards also to, of course, Arvin is very former athlete of one of our best Cebu, Coach Banzon, Coach Ilde Banzon. Jaime Cabalan of Apayao Province, Mirasol Sunga of Apalit National High School. Okay, so we continue. So, while also at the same time we're on Zoom, we have Robert Dagaas Jr. Sir Robert, if you can say something, if you're online, please say hello to our friends all over the world to Pinoyathletics. Sir Robert, what is your affiliation, and also at the same time, where are you located or connected? So meanwhile, while waiting for Mr. Robert Dagaas Jr., so we continue with our presentation, buddy. So one moment. Okay. Then, tak, tak, tak. Okay.
Before I start with this presentation, I want to say if Mr. Ildi Banzon is listening, Mr. Banzon in Cebu, I believe that Mr. Banzon, I have incredible respect for Coach Ildi Banzon because, as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the best and most underrated grassroots coaches in this country. He has produced several Palawan champions in the sprints.
Yes,
and I feel like if ever
for Visaya, I think for West Central Visayas, and this is what we are saying many times in terms of the local. As you mentioned, the underrated quote-unquote coaches in the Philippines, local coaches, we have Coach Noel Diel, we have Ilde Banson, and I think what else that you can mention. We should also find
Coach Damasol from Leyte.
Yeah, Leyte, and also the coach of Risa Valiente, who was the name of that from Bohol.
Rosella Regalacion from
yes,
Bohol.
Regalacio, and then also who
the
else?
Arcas,
of course.
The Arcas, the guys and the coaches in B-Call, they're doing pretty good as well. So with LD Banzon, I'm hoping that one day maybe if he wants he could come and do it. Yeah, I would. I'm hoping with LD Banzon or Coach Banzon, one day if he has time, if he could join us on our track talk, and we would love to hear from him and his journey as a coach, his perspective, and all those wonderful athletes that came from Cebu that he worked with, from I believe Belani Chantal right up to Samantha Lemos, just all those wonderful Polaroid performances that he shared with us from athletes that he nurtured and developed. And we would love to hear about his coaching philosophy and his coaching journey, if ever he has time to to join us. We'd be very interested to learn and hear his story about how about his coaching and that sort of thing. Anyway, I'll begin with this presentation on talent identification for speed and power athletes. Okay, so talent identification for speed and power athletes, mainly in this case sprinters, because that's my field of expertise. Out of all the events, I feel that's the one I'm probably the most adept to. www.pinoyathletics.info. Okay, so next slide. Thanks.
Yes, one moment. By the way, I'm trying to communicate with Arvin Loberanis because he's the
Okay,
one.
he might be on the PAFA webinar today. I believe that's
and
ongoing.
no worries, yeah. But I think okay, so this is your second slide, buddy. So coaches seldom realize blah blah blah.
Okay, all right. So coaches seldom realize when they decide to place an athlete in an event at a young age how critical this decision is. At this time, when the coach is simply thinking of picking up a few points, an athlete's career can be bolstered, wrecked, and a pattern of self-confidence or eternal self-doubting can be established if not done right. Okay, next slide or piece of this slide, I believe. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so there's an athlete there who's kind of like fits in the below category. Obviously, he doesn't look very happy. He's basically sort of like wants a bit of alone time. He's sort of covered. He might be crying here. He's like obviously not like a bit depressed. Obviously, not enjoying himself at this point. Okay, next slide.
Yeah, one moment. Okay, one moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This decision might well have determined whether an athlete will eventually experience success or failure, receive a scholarship or not, remain in the sport. It's a serious matter, so there are more thoughts. Here are some more thoughts on talent identification. So this is like relating really if an athlete's specialized at too young an age, there's considerations here with when choosing to what age and when to specialize an athlete. These are some factors that may happen. I mean, obviously, if an athlete specializes at an early age, it doesn't always end up in disaster, but it can potentially end up in disaster if not handled well. So that's why it needs to be done carefully. I mean, look at, for example, Usain Bolt, right? If we're talking early age specialization, the guy was running the 200 when he was 13. It's not like he was a good junior who went on to become an incredible senior athlete and, like really incredible senior athlete. So he was a young athlete who went on to do really well. Another young athlete who went on to do really well was EJ Obiena. I mean, he was doing pole vault when he was like comps when he was about 13 or 14. And, he went on to become an incredible, like an incredible, pole vaulter. It's not just, so it's not just early age, specializing in any event at an early age and enjoying an event or whatever. Like, it's not real. It doesn't always lead to disaster if it's done well. I mean, EJ was like, a pretty good junior athlete, and he went on to become a Asian champion and world university games champion when he got older. I mean, he was nurtured really well by the people, especially by his dad, and now in that very capable hands of Vitaly Petrov. I mean, he was nurtured very well, and he continually improved, and he never lost that love for the sport. The love for the sport, even though at times, it was frustrating and a bit depressing and difficult at times, he still really loved what he was doing, and he really knew what he wanted to do and where he was going. And that was really nurtured and supported by a set of loving parents who really, catered and helped him on that journey. And, like that's why I don't feel that specializing too young is always a bad thing if the people who are supporting the athletes. Of course, EJ didn't just do pole vault. I mean, he did hurdles and other things as well. And but his love was always pole vault. It's not like he was going to really get serious about another event. He always knew he wanted to be a pole vaulter, and that's how it went. Anyway, next slide. One fundamental question is asked: are you sure all your athletes are in the correct event or the right sport? Yeah. So when I was coaching at the sports academy, I was primarily a sprints coach. I have coached middle distance, and I did coach some middle distance athletes, but I primarily I was assigned to coach sprinters there, so 1 and 200 only. I wasn't even allowed to touch the 4 at that time, so I focused on the 1, the 2, and the 4x1. That was my assignment, my designation, so I wasn't allowed to venture out of that, even though I did end up with some athletes who ended up as quite good long jumpers. I had athletes that could have been, better at the 400, possibly even up to the 8. I moved I had an assistant coach who was a jumps coach, so that was good because we worked together well, and I did assign some athletes who I felt would be better in the high and the jumps, so they went over to the other coach. Some athletes would have been good hurdlers. The other thing was with some of the athletes I was developing, I helped them get as quick as I could get them. When I felt that that they would improve, I got into the point where I felt that improvements would have become very minimal, and if they wanted to try out other sports, I usually let them go and do other sports, because I felt that what's important is not just as a coach what you feel you want the athletes to do, but what do the athletes enjoy doing. Maybe you help them develop their speed to a certain point, and then that speed is going to be very helpful in a lot of other sports, because speed is really crucial in other sports, whether they decide to go and play football, whether they play basketball. I worked with an athlete, who did baseball, and, we got him down to 11.6, and he ended up playing for as pitcher for one of the Philippine teams. So, that really helped him become a better athlete in his chosen sport. Sometimes the sport develop the speed for the athlete. Sometimes it's not their most favorite sport, and they want to do something else, which is fine. And this, as a coach, you have to sort of accept that and move on, and just say, you help develop the athlete's speed, which played a small part in the helping that athlete be a better athlete in the other sport, which is good, because speed is very transferable to other sports, and it's good. I mean, as long as they're motivated and they want to do what they and they're enjoying what they're doing, then I think it's perfectly fine. Yeah, so cool. So next slide. Okay, that's interesting. Obviously, we're looking for athletes for speed-orientated events. People who can run fast are the best candidates. But how can you tell who might be faster later in life? So, yeah, when you have athletes, you've got to take into account that, the way I see it, that sometimes the shorter athletes, they're usually really good, at the start. The taller athletes take a little bit longer to catch up, because obviously they've got a higher center of gravity, so developing coordination and growth, and being able to move efficiently, that it takes longer for them to adapt to that sort of thing. When finding athletes for the sprints, hurdles, jumps, and throws, so all of these events listed, sprints, hurdles, jumps, and throws, they all require speed and power, especially sprints and hurdles. Sprints are basically the default, and then the hurdles and the jumps, you've got athletes that are good at sprints can be transferable over to hurdles and jumps. Throws a little bit different, as it requires a lot of arm and upper body strength, more arm and upper body strength as well, but also short bursts of speed, like lifting type speed, are very crucial for that event. There are 3 variables to look for: the ability to produce force quickly. So how quickly, not just not just applying force, a lot of force, but applying force quickly. So that's, for example, in the sprint, is basically hitting the ground and then coming back up into the next cycle of the sprint as quickly as possible, not just sort of hitting the ground and getting stuck on the ground sort of thing. The ability to move body parts and limbs quickly. So yeah, that's done through plyometrics and those sort of exercises to develop that, and the body type. Like for the athlete, do they have a big structure, or are they? So most sprinters are relatively lean, hopefully. A lot of lean muscle, or sometimes they might be a bit slim to start with, and they kind of need to gain weight. A very good example of a test that I used to identify sprinters and talent, because I went around a lot of schools in the province, and they didn't have they didn't have enough space, so I could do a 30-meter run with a 20-meter flying start. That generally that's a good test, but in schools which don't even have enough space to do that, some schools only had 10 meters or 5 meters, or you had to go inside a inside a covered court or something like that. So there wasn't the space. What I usually did was I did standing long jumps, because I felt that with standing long jump and sprint speed, there was a correlation between, if an athlete was very good at the standing long jump, they usually had quite a bit of explosive fast twitch in the legs. So I had charts on, for sprinters I was working with, most of the girls, for example, were running, most of the girls that were running in the 12s, they were doing around 240 to 260, 250 in the standing long jump, versus the girls who were running, around the 13 and a half mark. They're probably doing, close to about 180, 190. So there was a correlation between, not an exact correlation, but there was a general correlation between sprint speed and the amount that they could standing long jump. All right, I think we need to go back to, we got up to slide 6, I think, or it might have been a bit further. Okay,
Go
I think
back one slide or continue?
Forward one slide.
Okay, one moment. Oh, sorry. This one?
Yeah, forward. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. A major clue in the search for talent in the speed and power events is the ability to produce large forces quickly. This shows the athlete's power and elasticity. This ability can be measured subjectively by watching youngsters as they perform hopping and jumping games. Example, the standing long jump, which is what I mentioned before, and I probably do not need to go into much more detail. All right, next slide. So yeah, this is running along nicely, because we're probably going to be done by about 5 o'clock at this rate, or maybe slightly after. All right, yeah, so this is just I'm not sure if this is a video. I think this is a photo. It might be a video if we're lucky. This is a girl. Yep. Okay. The video. Yeah, this is a video of what I mean by a standing long jump. This is a girl doing a standing long jump. I'm not sure about the technique. I didn't really look into it, but this is just the general idea of how a standing long jump is done. See, boom, there she goes. See, she doesn't go over that line. That's how she does. That's how she performs a standing long jump. And the measurement is taken from the back of the foot, as in any long jump. No front of the foot stuff. That's kind of cheating. You have to take the measurement from the back of the foot. So if we could just play that video again, Ernal, just for the public's benefit. I felt, that actually I looked at her position at the start. I didn't feel it was a good video, but then I realized the way she takes off looks pretty good. Obviously, jump.
Okay, we're now playing it.
Yep. So this is a standing long jump. form. It'll show you, like in slow-mo, how she tucks under and then comes bang onto the ground, and she jumps 220, which is a fairly good jump, which correlates probably to around 13 seconds for the 100 on my scale. Anyway, next. That was actually a pretty good video to have in there. I didn't realise. This is just one of my old backup archive ones for a rainy day like today.
Okay, this one?
I need to go back one, I think, because...
this one, or going back?
Go back one. Yep. Okay, so these are some examples. I think... No, we're not going back to... Yeah, here we go. Okay, so here are some examples which, as you see, cogs in the process. Can they jump high or far? In short, you want people who, what are you looking for? Is a high ratio of displacement to ground contact time. So high ratio of displacement means more time off the ground than on the ground in terms of contact. So basically the ability to like tap the ground and explode is what you're really looking for when looking for talent. Okay, next slide. Yep. Okay, so watch kids on the basketball and volleyball courts. Look not only for the person who can jump, but the person who can land from a jump and jump quickly high again. So this is like an example of the last thing that's said about ground displacement. It's about not just being able to land on a jump, but to jump and then explode quickly high again off a jump. So that is one way. If you go to the basketball, volleyball courts and you look for athletes, I mean, one athlete I had, he was a volleyball player, and he was a little bit too short for volleyball. I mean, 5'6", and when I saw him, he couldn't run properly, but I could see he had very good ground displacement time, very good bounce, which was just another way of describing ground displacement. He spent a lot of time in the air when he ran, like tap the ground, spent a lot of time in the air. He just didn't have very good leg cycle movement and very good arm swing. But I ended up fixing most of that. So, like he went from 12.5 to 11.4 in less than a year, and 25.7 to 22.8 in, I believe it was 9 or 10 months. From just fixing, the efficiency. But like that's the sort of thing that you need to look for when you're trying to identify sprint talent, is like looking at ground displacement, bounce, explosivity, that sort of thing. So, the athlete might be very slow when they, like 12.5 for a 16, 17-year-old boy that's really slow. But what I'm saying is that you look at the upside, which is that he needs to work on a lot of things. And, when you start ticking all the boxes as a coach, then he's not going to be running 12.5 for that. He's not going to be running 12.5 for much longer. Tick all the boxes, like just the technique, how to run properly, how to clear the blocks, all that sort of stuff. So start ticking the boxes for the athlete, and then they're going to just continuously get better as time comes. And you've got to be patient, because it's a long-term process, a long-term commitment in terms of nurturing an athlete to get them from A to B. And it's like in a way, it's like a scientific experiment to some extent, because you're observing the athlete, you're finding something that they need to improve, and then you're making that, you're basically working that into your program along with the needs of the other athletes you work with as well. So it's like, it's an ongoing process where you need to just continue, finding new ways to improve your athletes by looking at videos, watching the athletes run, getting verbal feedback from the athletes, communication, very important. We'll move to the next slide. I think we're nearly done here. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, we are done. So yeah, this is just a very short 10-slide presentation. I'm trying to make my slides 20 in future, but this was my old format. I just dug this up because I felt it would be very useful to share with coaches, especially when they've got a lot of time to read up during COVID. Probably the best time to enrich your coaching knowledge. Okay, so these are some very useful links that I have listed. One is talent identification for speed and power athletes, which is about a 5,000 word article, which is like the bigger version of what I presented today. I've also included a link for is speed training appropriate for adolescents, which is basically explaining how speed training is adapted for adolescents compared to, say, elite athletes. These are two really useful links. And also, feel free to leave comments in regards to that, okay? So, Nell, anything to add, or are there any questions from the group or any shout-outs?
Okay, one moment. So far, yes. We would like to again to thank everyone who joined us for this morning or afternoon there sa Philippines. So Jaime Cabalan, Arvin Loberanis, Maria Merosol Su, and also Coach, who's the name? Okay, stop share. Okay. Of course, I think Mr. Dagaas is not Dagastas, it's Dagaas who is who joined us later. Okay, I'm continuously communicating with Coach Arvin Loberanis if we can get on board Banson on our next session. So we'll see what will happen. Yeah, so that if not, then we can also again it's like we will do something like this, ladies and gentlemen. So this time we will put a highlight on our local coaches who perform well in spite of their challenges and limitations for who had a stellar record, especially Pisaa. So those coaches that should be recognized in our community. So we go from local most of the time. So
okay. Were there any questions to the group?
Have a good challenges. I think it's about recognize them. Okay, if there's any questions, you can accommodate like one or three of them on Facebook also and on Zoom.
About another 10 minutes to this online session before we wrap things up. I'm down to 10% battery on my phone, which is not a good thing. Okay, here we go. Well, there's some comments, but there's no questions. Good afternoon, watching.
Yes. Okay. So they're watching from Apalit High School. Yes.
And Jaime Cabal and Putul na.
It means that their connection, because Mr. Cabalan is living in Apayao province, one of the mountain regions in the Cordillera region. Near it's like near Mountain Province.
Is it near Benguet?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. It's part of the Cordillera Autonomous Region, Apayao, Kalinga, Benguet, Mountain Province. And
that's nearby where Hector Baggio came from. I think that might even be where Hector Baggio came from. He came from around there because Hector Baggio was from the mountain provinces of Baguio. The Olympic steeplechaser that Tony Benson developed, Mr. Hector Baggio, the steeplechaser.
From Baguio City. And also Catherine K.
No, he's not from Baguio. He's not from Baguio City. He's from one of the mountain provinces. Because Tony told me he drove into the mountains to the village of Hector to go and fetch him. So Hector comes from the mountains, which was probably very good in his development, I guess. Get strong lungs and that sort of thing, altitude, sort of stuff. Okay, that's not bad. We have we had a few people tune in today, but that was, I think well, it was good. I mean, that was just one of the presentations we had lying around. Yeah, I mean, if we can get Vans on or somebody else on, that would be good. I mean, I've got heaps of presentations if need be, which we can have in reserve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, we're almost done. So anything else on your part?
Another We'll cut it to about 4 minutes now because.
Okay, yeah. So I think we covered quite fine. And then, of course, we will continue our sessions next Thursday. So always stay tuned every Tuesday
What
and
I'm
Thursday.
gonna do is I'm not sure if you want to join. It's regarding the coaching group.
Mhm.
I'm going to do some like goal setting. I'm doing a goal setting session, but obviously that's just for the group, like a goal setting session for the athletes in the group to get them to write down goals and that sort of thing. I mean, if anyone, if there's any applicants, we can always screen them if they want to join the group. But I would rather have a quality group than have just more athletes and that then we can actually handle. But we'll see how it goes. I'll just stop. What we can do, we'll just stop we'll just go another 5 minutes, but we'll stop the recording and the live stream now. So before I do
we
that,
will stop now the recording. Okay, so thank you to everyone who joined us. Join us on next Thursday for another edition of Track Talk. Okay, and then once so far again our lineup, we're still working to invite the palaro in charge for DepEd. That's our main agenda for the next few weeks. Again, it depends on their schedule. Second, we will have a presentation on our underrated, quote unquote underrated winning coaches or most successful local coaches in palaro, prisa, squaa, etc. for our next edition. We are working to have on board Coach Alvin Loberanes of University of San Carlos, Cebu, and of course, his mentor, Coach Ildebanson. So stay tuned for our next edition of Pinoy Athletics Talk Talk. This is Coach Ernel Abara of the University of Physical Education Hungary, and with our newly recognized Level 3 Australian Athletics Coaches Association Level 3 Coach Andrew Perry saying goodbye and good afternoon. And take care. God bless. Mabuhay po tayong lahat.